The son of HAL 2000, the AI, has been at it again, right? And we are now seeing the release of 3, count them, 3 Apex irons. Let's talk about that and figure out how they work.
Yes, let's do that review, Jim.
Welcome back to the McGolf Fitting Room. Jim McCleary, and we are going to talk about the Callaway Apex irons. Now, the Callaway Apex irons have reached their 2-year recycle mark, or their cycle, whatever you want to call it, and it's time, right? The last one was 19, this is 21. The one before that was 16. They had such a good run with it, they went an extra year. So that, hey, good for them. But now what they've done, a couple things different that they've done. Number one, they've added a 3rd iron to the lineup, and we'll cover that in a minute. 2, they've allowed AI to get involved with the design of the club, much like they've done all the other drivers, fairway woods, hybrids, okay? And if you want to see what the latest was, I did a review on the Epic driver. You can see that up here. Pretty good thing.
I did do a pretty good job, didn't I?
So what is the common, we're going to get to all of them, but the commonality between all 3 of them, so I don't say it 3 times for you, right? The commonality, they all have a forged body. It's a 1020, 1025 carbon forged body, all right? They all have a level of cup face, all right? And cup face is where the face comes onto it and it sits just like that. And that allows for a, I'm not going to say expanded sweet spot because it's just not, technically that's not it. However, it does give for a level of forgiveness. And that is what the AI face has really come up with, is to be more forgiving across the face. All right, that's what we want to talk. That's what we really want to have when we have mishits. We want to have that forgiving. It's never going to be as good as right there in the middle, but we want to reduce the amount of penalty, okay, penalty, whatever we want to call it. And that's what the AI face came in to do. Now, how did we get to all that with all these different clubs? What we're looking at is you're seeing the different ones as they go by. Now, the Apex is going to be the standard model, and it's what you've seen before. It looks very, very familiar from last model look. However, there's more going on in it. We'll talk about that one. Then you have the Apex Pro. The Apex Pro has always been a stronger club for slightly better golfers, and it now sports a hollow body design, of which will be really, really cool, I think. And then you also have and they will have weaker loss before the guy with the higher swing speed. And finally, what you're seeing now is, or I'm going to tell you about it, is the DCB, the deep cavity back. And the deep cavity back is they've just moved the center of gravity back a little bit more with a slightly wider sole and make it a little bit more forgiving for allowing another group of golfer types to be involved with a forged club. And that's what that's for. Okay, so let's go around. Let's talk about, we'll start from the 3rd one and work our way back. The DCB. All right, the DCB, as we look at it, we can see that it has a slightly wider sole. The footprint doesn't seem to be much bigger than the original one. It still has the graphics and the look, so it doesn't have this, oh, look at me, I am a game-improving club. It doesn't have that look. And if you were to put it down at address, the top line might be just a tick thicker. Say that a bunch of times fast. And it just has this really good look at address. Now, what it does have that the others done is what I would call a medium-large offset. So this is a very, very forgiving club for those guys that need it in a forged product. So that's going to be something to talk about. We go into the regular Apex, and this looks very, very familiar from last year. However, what we're seeing is that the back end where you see the moniker is more of it's a polished or a chromed area, where the rest of it is of the typical Callaway satin. Now what we're seeing is here is we're seeing a lot of added weight in a lot of these products. All right, we're seeing in anywhere from 50 to 90 grams of tungsten being put into the bottom, and depending on the model. So what do we mean by that? Well, what we're seeing is down in this particular area in all three clubs, there is going to be the urethane microspheres and the tungsten. And what they're doing is, particularly in this model, is that there's a chunk here, a chunk here, and a chunk here, and it's surrounded by the urethane microspheres so that that weight's down, the loft can get strong, the feel will be softer, even using the forged components. So you get the ball speed because it's stronger and the way that the face is designed, plus you still get the weight so you can get the launch angle. And that's going to be true in all three of them. Now, the DCB and the regular Apex will have the pieces across the bottom where the Apex Pro, it doesn't have as much curvature, and it'll just be one solid piece going across there. And that has quite a bit of weight thrown across to the bottom, even with the weaker lofts. Now, as we said in the DCB with the most offset, the Apex will have the medium offset, and then the Pro will have the least amount of offset. It does have some, so those guys looking for that zero offset club, this is not going to be that one. But it's minimal, okay? It's still be able to be workable, but it's not going to be that zero. It's not going to be that zero look. Although it has a much thinner top line than I've seen in the past, it's a good look, right? Again, being as I'm the club fitter guy, the first thing I do, well, I measure them. So we're going to go measure. All right, so what we found, what did we find in these things? It was kind of funny. The longer club, the DCB, was like 1/8 of an inch short. The rest of them are at 37 inches. That's the standard length club, and I'm fine with that. 1/8 of an inch short. That, that's the width of a saw blade. So we can give them that one. In both the DCB and the regular Apex, I found the lie and the loft to be the same, 62 and 30, where I found the Pro to be 60.5 and 33. That might be a degree stronger, and I haven't seen any of the specs yet, but that might be a degree stronger. Between 33 and 34 is where these normally lie. I expected it to be flatter because of the better player. That's the typical lie angle that you get. Now the surprise was the shafts. All right, the shafts that we use, the shafts that are going to be offered are going to be amazing. The Elevate has come out with yet a new line of Elevate. They pretty much had a successful year, and they have a 95, a 105, 115. What we're going to be using in the testing today is between 95 and 115. At least I think so. What do we got? Yep, 95, 115. Now the surprise in this one is the Mitsubishi MMT. I kind of stumbled on the MMT last time, so we're just going to let that one go. And the MMT apparently has a slightly more firmer butt section than a lot of the clubs. This one in its flex came out more stiff. Of course, I'm just measuring in this particular part than even the Elevate did at a much higher weight. So that was a little bit different. We're going to see how that one works. And then we're going to use, and this one's new to the market, is a UST recoil dart. Recoil dart. Okay. And that one's a new one. I haven't really read this one too much, but it stands for Dual Action Recoil Technology. So we're going to see how that one works. So we put the dart, because it's the lighter shaft, we're going to put it in the DCB. We're going to put the MMT. We're going to put the MMT into the regular Apex, and then we're going to put the Elevate, the 115 Elevate, all right, into the Pro model, and we're just going to see how it goes. So we have 3 different models to test, 3 different ways they're put together. Let's see if they fly 3 different ways. All right, we're reviewing the 3 Apex models, the Standard, the DCB, and the Pro, and as we see right here, the Standard ended up winning the day in distance, and as we know that the Standard and the DCB are the same loft and lie, and they ended up being 2 yards different in carry and about 3 yards different in the total distance. And the shorter total distance has to do with a little bit higher spin that the DCB produced, where the Pro came in at 180 and then 189 with a little higher swing speed but yet a little lower smash factor. So we know that this one the Pro was 3 degrees weaker, so we expected it to be behind, but actually it performed very, very well. Now, if we look at the club head speed that I was producing, you know, anywhere from 88 to 91. Is where it was at, with some really good smash factors in all three categories. We see that the one for the Pro is a little bit lower, and that's expected when the loft goes weaker. When the loft increases, we expect this to go down. And the spin came up associated with it, so that was pretty good. The flight times were very, very appropriate. And again, because of the weaker loft, it was going to launch a little higher, so it had a little more flight time. And all the designators were straight. That's quite unusual for me. So let's see how this really, really worked. If we start with the standard and we launch all 15 shots. So to kind of cap what we did is I did 15 shots. I did them in 5-round increments, and one time the standard went first, the next time the DCB went first, the next time the Pro went first. So we kind of had an aggregate display. Also, I changed some shafts. And I'll talk about that here in a little bit. So up it goes. The standard hit very, very well. Very, very well pleased with it. When you're talking about taking a 7-iron almost to 190, who's going to complain? And it was a fairly tight pattern to my inside, keeping in mind that I am a lefty. And that worked out very, very well. Now if we go to the DCB, same thing. Right, a little bit of a fan, looks a little bit better that direction. Probably not nearly as tight, not nearly as, I would say, condensed is a good word in that one. And it could be just because of the sole or whatever, where it was, maybe not necessarily for me. But it did, I mean, it felt really good. Just a little thick on the top line for an eyeball, but all in all, if you were really, you know, trying to get rid of a fade or trying to tweak out a fade, the DCB is certainly the way to go. There we go. Now we have the Pro model, fanning out just a little bit. Not too bad. And when we see the grouping, you kind of get a different perspective. But very, very consistent in its length. You know, that 182, 181, 182 seem to be very, very consistent, which really kind of surprised me. When you have a hollow body iron, typically you have hot spots. In this particular instance, it did not, so that was a good thing. So let's see how they grouped. All right, as you see over here, this is the culmination of all three of the clubs, where the blue is the DCB, the red is the standard, and the green is the Pro. Pro is a little bit smaller, albeit a little bit more into the left, which is kind of unique with a club with almost no offset. But they all performed, you know, just as we expected, within a 3 to 4 yard range of each other, and that was pretty good. However, if we look at the single landing spots of them all, this one is the Pro. We get to see that I had a very tight cluster, albeit to my inside, in pretty good. Out of the 15 shots, I look 12 of them were right there in a very, very reliable spot. Now, if we go to the standard model, we're finding out that, again, I can pretty much do that, is that if we go to the standard model, what we'll find is I had a tight cluster as well, but maybe just a few extra got outside. I hit a few that were very, very far, maybe a few that were a little bit more to my inside, but as a whole, the rest of them were nice and tight. Again, this club felt really, really good. It is a distance machine, and it was also very strong. The DCB, again, very nice feeling club, a little bit wider on the dispersion for me, right? And certainly to the inside, the lion's share, if not, well, I mean, these two. So basically only one got to the left, and that's good for a club that has a truckload of offset. So not too bad at all. As we know, and this is just for me, a guy swinging right around, we'll call it 88 to 89 mile an hour. You know, 180 with a 7-iron, not bad at all. And then we'll do the flights one more time. You get to see it, how it goes off into the right. There we go. Then we have the DCB, and it takes off, still into the right-hand side, falling out of space. And you notice even with the the very low lofts or the strong lofts, that these things are coming out of the air very, very nicely. All right, and then finally, but the standard. And it's going out, and again, flying quite high, and it's getting out there. All right, so we saw they flew. Quite impressed with the 7-iron, how it gets out there. Quite impressed with the feel. Let's go find out who we're going to recommend them for. So from measuring the clubs to hitting the clubs to even talking about the clubs, what do we think, right? What do we think about the apex line? You know, starting at the top, bottom, or however we want to look at it, you'll have the standard, the DCB, and the pro. And each one of them are going to be kind of tailored to a specific type of golfer. Now, climbing on my soapbox, go get fit, all right? Go get fit. When you go get fit, then you can assure yourself that the clubs that you have underneath of you are the clubs that you need for your better golf, so you enjoy life, you have a good time, and do all those things you wanted to do with your golf equipment, okay? Now, again,
Are you off your
you're going
soapbox?
to get asked, well, who are these for? Well, again, in this particular instance, when we're talking about 3, everybody, okay? Everybody. You can have the DCB is going to be for the guy, typically is going to be for the guy or gal, for that matter, that is going to be fighting a fade. The offset that's on this typically is to help to get the club closed and somebody that needs help from pushes, okay? The other part is it has a slightly wider sole again, so it helps the ball get up into the air, and that way you can, you know, for people that have trouble with that particular issue, and take, you know, we'll say larger size divots, it tends to bounce out. And you also get all this in a forged feel or in a forged body. The standard is probably going to appeal to the most people. It's also going to be the most familiar because it looks a lot like the previous year model, right? They've done some design changes as far as the way the cosmetic is, and it is very appealing in the bag, at address, and in the performance category. Good night, 183-yard 7-iron for me, that's pretty good, right? And the fact, if you see the quality of the ball strike for a 7-iron in the 135 range, that's pretty decent. I mean, that works very, very well. Now, the last but not least is the Pro. And the Pro model has an extraordinarily cool setup at address. It's very, very nice. Has the thinner top line, has almost no offset, but it does have some. As it's stated earlier, those looking for the 0 offset may not like this one. However, if you're looking for just that little bit of forgiveness, then yeah, this is going to be that one. Keep in mind, hollow body design, not your traditional blade. It's packed with technology, with the AI face, the cup face, all the weighting, the urethane microspheres, the forged stuff, and it still goes. I mean, this thing, that's not to be trifled with. It's a very, very stout 7-iron. And then the last part we got to talk about are the shaft options. Callaway has upped their game in the amount of shafts or even the types of shafts. The MMT is no joke. Although it may not have fit me, but it worked pretty doggone good. The recoil stuff, which I tend to gravitate from a graphite point of view, worked pretty good. The Dart's a real deal kind of shaft. And then we add in the Elevate ETS, right? Now, basically ETS, take out whatever words you want to use, but it's basically an enhanced tip system, whatever you want to call it. A little bit stronger version than the Red, and it worked very, very well. I like the feel. It wasn't harsh. You know, you probably get just it. So what you'll have is, for those guys that know, in the DG, the Dynamic Gold, you're going to have the lower ball flight. In the red label of the Elevates, it's going to be the higher ball flight, and this one's going to be right in the middle. I can see this being a very, very popular shaft in other clubs going forward as well. So go get fit, know which clubs that you're going to need for your bag. Don't be afraid to add one to the top or the bottom, whatever that's going to be, and enjoy the game. If you got any questions, put them in the show notes below. You're going to see some stuff out there that's going to be, you know, they're going to say, hey, subscribe here. Hey, take a look at this if you would. Stay with the channel and see if you'd like some more golf stuff. Make sure you subscribe, though. And as always, let's see your scores go low.
Thanks, Jim.